Hey, welcome to the Bullpen Sessions podcast, a podcast for driven insurance professionals who are looking to reach their full potential in their insurance careers. This is the place where we help motivated insurance professionals build the right mindset and tools to create more credibility with their target prospects. I'm your host, Andy Neary, former professional athlete turned insurance advisor. Each week, you will learn tips and strategies to help you execute a clear prospecting game plan every single week. Clarity creates action. When you're clear, you're confident. When you're confident, you're consistent. When you're consistent, you are unstoppable. All right, let's dive into today's episode. Hey, welcome back to the Bullpen Sessions podcast. My name is Andy Neary, and this is episode 278. This week, I am joined by Fred Joyal. Fred is the author of Superbold, From Underconfident to Charismatic in 90 Days. He's also a very sought-after keynote speaker. He's done over 450 keynote talks in his career. I wanted to have Fred on. I've met Fred in a my mastermind that we are both members of. And Fred has a skill set to talk about being bold. And for my audience who is often finding themselves in uncomfortable sales situations, being bold is key. And in this episode, Fred shares a ton of nuggets about what it takes to be bold in your sales career. Now, let me give you a little hint. You do not need to be born with the gift of being bold. It is a muscle you can develop just like you develop your muscles in the gym. What Fred says, bold people never stop themselves. They let other people try. In this episode, you are going to learn about his PRIDE acronym and how you can use the acronym of preparation, relaxing, insight, dosage, and everyday action to grow your boldness every single day. And he even includes some daily exercises you can implement to help you grow your bold muscles. So tune in. You're going to love this episode. And if you are an insurance producer who's looking to use keynote speaking to grow your business, you're going to love the insight Fred shares on how you can take your naturally born ways of being an introvert and apply them to keynote speaking to your advantage. Remember, boldness is not something you're born with. It's something you build over time. So let's tune in. You're going to love this interview with Fred. Here we go. Hey, welcome to the Bullpen Sessions podcast. Fred Joyal, I am excited to have you on. Welcome, man.
Thank you. Great to be here, Andy.
Fred, this is I'm excited to have this conversation. You and I met at we'll call it a mastermind, or I don't know what we call it, but Brand Builders Group. We're both members of Brand Builders Group, and I love your story. And I was, as I look to bring content to my viewers who are primarily insurance producers, I want to make sure we're bringing content that is very relevant. And one area where you have expertise, I think, is very relevant to my audience. You are the author of the book Superbold, From Underconfident to Charismatic in 90 Days. This is what we're going to talk about, because what I love about your story, Fred, people, if they met you today, and I've met you in our BBG settings, and I'm like, this is an outgoing dude. But you weren't born that way.
No.
Talk about that for a second, because I think a lot of people believe salespeople are just born extroverts. That's not the case.
No, I was painfully introverted to the point where the first time somebody gave me the opportunity to do sales, they handed me a desk and a list of people and said, just start calling these clients, see if they want to do business with. I couldn't make a single cold call. I couldn't dial the phone. That was symbolic of many aspects of my life where I was hesitating, missing opportunities. I was painfully introverted and behaved in a shy way. And I worked my way out of it by emulating bold people, and then eventually figured out how I could teach people this, because a lot of times, if some people are really good at something, they don't know how they got there. I know how I got him this way, and somebody could do it much faster than I did it. And that's what I help people to do.
I'm curious, because if, the audience heard the preview of your background, and a lot of it was in the dental industry.
Yeah.
What led you to writing the book Superbold and really studying that, I guess, call it that skill set of being bold when it matters most?
Well, people started referring to me as an extrovert and bold and even charismatic, which is why that's in the title. And being charismatic just means that your energy is so positive and outgoing that it draws people in. That you're visibly comfortable in all sorts of situations and not worried about what people are thinking, and that attracts people. And also you're able to really connect with people, and that's a powerful life skill. And so for me, it was I wanted people to know this, and it actually the seminal moment was I was coaching a group of high school students in a seminar a friend of mine was running, and I listed 10 life skills that I thought they needed, and one of them is that boldness is a superpower, and I really believe that's true. That it can have an incredible impact on your life and on the impact you have on the world. And they said, "Yeah, that's great. How would we do that?" And I thought, oh, I better figure out how I did it so I can teach them.
Yeah, no, when I think about my childhood, I mentioned that you and I feel like had a similar childhood. You said in the book, you were a nerdy kid with glasses. I was not only nerdy, not only did I have glasses, I was also very overweight. So I had all of that.
Nice combination there.
It is a great combination, right? And I actually I feared attention as a kid because all of it usually was negative. And instead of trying to stand out, be extroverted, all I wanted to do is fit in. And you said something in the book. I made a note of a comment. You said, if you could give your child one thing, what would it be? And you said boldness. Talk about that. Why is it important that we encourage our youth today to be more bold and give them that positive feedback that it's okay to be bold? What can that do for a child's life?
I think it's very hard to know at that young age how short life actually is. Mm-hmm. And that what happens is, if you don't think about that, somebody else decides your life for you. And it's life's too short to let other people decide what you're capable of. It's too short to blame anybody else for your happiness. And so we learned, especially as teenagers, that we worry about what everybody thinks. And except for a few bold people who figure out that there's very few people's opinions that should actually matter to them. Because people are not thinking about you anywhere near as much as you think they are. They're thinking about themselves. And they're having judgments about you that are wrong. Just like I have it. I do this all the time. I see people, I go, oh, that guy should never have a beard. He looks ridiculous. He shouldn't wear that hat. She shouldn't dress like that. He needs to lose weight. He's going to have a heart attack. We do all this stuff naturally. And when I get to know these people, because I deliberately do it more and more now, I find out I'm wrong about 97% of the time. So I just transferred that and said, that's what people are doing with me. They're judging me by my haircut, my glasses, my shirt, by what kind of phone I use. They're like everything, the car I drive, none of it defines who I am. And so when you can let that go, that's incredibly liberating. And then you can chase your dreams, because that's what, if you don't chase your dreams, they will decay. Just like, I like to use the teeth analogy. It's like, you don't reach your dreams because they were too hard. You don't reach them because you didn't get to them. You hesitated and you talked. You said, I'm not worthy of this. I'm going to fail at that. I don't want to be embarrassed. I don't want people to laugh at me. Bold people don't worry about that stuff. Bold people know that being embarrassed is actually a choice that you can make. You can actually laugh it off. And whatever happened that other people would be embarrassed about or would be embarrassed for you, you don't have to be embarrassed about. And that's just a mental shift. It's just a decision that you make to choose to react differently. And when you can do that, you stop hesitating, and you stop hesitating when it matters most. And the result is you don't get a regret, you get an experience. And a lot of times it's an amazing experience that's unexpected. And that's what bold people have learned is sometimes they just go in. And here's the other thing is people say, well, I have to be confident to be bold. If I were more confident, I would be bolder. Bold people do all sorts of stuff that they're not confident how it's going to come out. What they've learned is that the bold action is what builds your confidence. That's the formula. Is I learned to be bold by being uncomfortable, by doing things that I was not, it's situations I was not confident in. Walk up to that woman and talk to her. Go into my boss and explain to him why I want to make more money. Dial that phone and make that sales pitch. All of those things. Uncomfortable the whole time I'm doing it. But eventually it didn't show because I kept going in and I kept getting rewarded for making the bold action. So what happened is my comfort zone got bigger and bigger. And it's something that happens gradually, but you can make it happen. That's the most important thing to realize. You are in control of that.
Well, and I feel like if I'm hearing you right, it's almost like you take on this identity of a character, right? Even if you're not bold by nature, which most people aren't, putting yourself in those difficult situations, those uncomfortable situations, whether that be picking up the phone to call that big prospect or find yourself in a conference room with a huge opportunity, it's almost like you're getting in character a little bit. Am I hearing that right?
I mean, yeah, you're different way of behaving on for size. A lot of people fall into this trap. It's like, I'm just not that way. It's like, you don't have to be, you're not shy at the Thanksgiving dinner with your family. You behave in a shy way in certain situations, and you don't have to. You can feel uncomfortable and be pretending like you are comfortable. Yeah, one of the things, the mantras I try to teach people is just tell yourself, I belong everywhere. And when you behave that way, amazingly, people act like you belong there too. I mean, I recently was at a meeting and it was all of these high-end CEOs owned huge businesses and stuff like that. I didn't belong in that room at all. And I wasn't dressed. I didn't have a blazer even to walk into the room. But I thought, well, I'm going to go in there and, there's a couple of guys I know and I'm going to chat with them. And I just start wandering around the room. It's the cocktail party portion of the dinner. And at one point, this woman comes up who's clearly running the meeting and she says, can I get you a badge? And I said, well, I haven't been invited to the meeting. I said, but I know a few of the people here. And instead of kicking me out, which is, what could have happened, she said, oh, well, when we go to dinner, there won't be any seat. So at that point, you'll probably have to leave. I said, oh, I'm fine with that. I just wanted to chat with a few of these people during the cocktail hour. That's totally fine. She gives me a badge with my name on it. And then she comes up to me when it's dinner time and she says, several people had to leave. Feel free to sit down and have dinner with us. And this is like 100 people that I could have easily said, I don't belong here. But because I didn't go that way, I mean, I had great conversations, but I just got to be there. And nobody decided I didn't belong there, including the person whose decision that should be.
Well, and there's something you said there that I don't want to get overlooked, which was not only did you put yourself in that position, I'm not I'm not naive for a second to believe it worked out the way it did for a reason. Not only did you say, it's okay, I don't have to be here for dinner, I just want to network, and you leaned into that discomfort of being in a place you technically shouldn't have been, it also worked out in your favor that people left and there were spots open and you got to have dinner anyways. I feel like the fortune is in the bold, right? The fortune favors the bold. And the people who take those actions that are uncomfortable, things tend to have a way of working themselves out.
It's amazing the doors that open. And I think the other thing I tell people is that I ask them this. I say, who stops you the most in your life? And the correct answer is you. I mean, you will stop yourself way before anybody else in all sorts of situations with the stories you tell yourself about how you're going to be rejected or embarrassed or I don't belong here, all of those things. Bold people are never the ones who stop themselves. They let somebody else try. And they know that most of the time, somebody else won't stop them. You know, in my book, I have a whole bunch of exercises that people can do to build their boldness muscle. And one of them is if you see a sign on a door that says employees only, this is just an exercise, go in. If it's unlocked, go in just to figure out and realize that nothing bad will happen. Nobody's going to beat you to death. Nobody's going to arrest you. I've done it several times. Nobody says anything because they assume you belong there because you walked in. The most I've had is somebody saying, "Can I help you?" And people say, maybe. I think one person actually said, "I'm sorry, this is for employees only." And I said, "Oh, I'm an employee, I just not here." And they actually had to laugh, and then I left. But it's like, nothing bad happened. People say, "Oh, that should have been so embarrassing." Why? Because they told me to leave. I was in their employee lounge.
Yeah, no, I mean, what you're saying, Fred, just hits home for me because I look at the first 10 years of my insurance career. And just like my childhood, I spent too much of that time living in fear of judgment, fear of comparison, fear of failure. And therefore I never tried to stand out. I just wanted to fit in. And it is the reason I never came close to hitting my sales goals, because I wasn't willing to be bold enough to put myself out there, to try to put myself in the right room, because I had all those fears. And what I love about your book, you've got a very easy to understand acronym that we're going to talk about here. And I want to go through it letter by letter because I think it's got some very important tips for insurance producers, the audience listening to this podcast, that they can use to be more comfortable to put themselves in sales positions or in front of prospects they never thought they could get in front of because of that discomfort.
Yes.
Going back to what you and I talked about at the beginning, most people are not designed to be bold and extroverted. You can prepare yourself to be bold given the circumstances and the situation, which preparation is actually the first letter of your acronym, PRIDE, Pride. Preparation. If I've got a producer listening in, Fred, going, okay, I know I could be putting myself out there more, being a little more bold. How does one prepare themselves to be bold?
There's two parts to it. Okay. So preparation for that situation. Let's say if you're selling something, you want to know your product backwards and forwards. So you need that preparation, but you also need the phrases that pay. You need to know those simple things that are, selling is emotional. People make emotional decisions. And then you give them a rational reason to make that decision, but they're buying on emotion. Like, do you really want your wife to have to figure out how to pay the mortgage if something suddenly happens to you? Because that could happen to you at 39 years old. It happens all the time. That's you got to be prepared to say those things that are emotional triggers. And that's just, if you're going to walk up to a stranger and just talk to them, prepare what you're going to say. Nobody trains us for these social skills. They train us for everything else, but just prepare. Like, I'm going to have a compliment that I'm going to offer that person. But the other thing about preparation is you want to build your boldness muscle on an ongoing basis so that you're bold when it matters most, when it is going to have a payoff, when it is important to step up, speak up, stand up, ask for the order, shut up. Like, as we know, one of the great things in sales is when you present a close, you have to it takes boldness to shut up. Because the reason you talk through the close and don't wait for the answer is because you're afraid that you didn't of that silence. Bold people they'll wait you out for 5 minutes.
Yeah, you've given me so many. There's so many examples in my head that have come up in my career or others that I've been a part of where you just completely nailed it on the head. I've seen producers, a mentor of mine, talk themselves out of a sale because they just don't know how to sit in that silence and shut up.
Yeah.
And what I loved about what you said there, Fred, is being bold sometimes means shutting up.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the other side of it, though, that you made me think about was the fact that, again, people aren't born with the gift of boldness. It is a muscle you can develop over time.
Yes. And some people, they didn't have it programmed out of them at an early age, so they behave in a bold way because they have found the positive feedback loop. They have found that nobody's going to stop them. They have found that unexpectedly great things happen. So their default mode is boldness because it never got wiped out. Other people had it programmed out either as a child. Speak when you're spoken to. Don't be a show off. How many people have been told that? Why not show off? Why not draw attention to yourself? Why not be somebody who can light up a room? Why not be the one somebody calls charismatic? What's wrong? You know who has a problem with that? People who are jealous of bold people. Oh, look at him. He's a show off. He's an attention whore. He needs that to feel good about himself. It's like, nope, he likes people and he's chasing his dreams. I go back to your dreams decay because you stopped yourself from getting to them. And they don't have to be big dreams. They could be just, I really want a great mate. I really want to be a great parent. Some people are afraid to be a bold parent and say to their kid, you're not going out, or you're going to get a phone when you're 16 and not before. I don't care if all your friends have one, because it's not good for you, in my opinion. And I'm in charge of your growth until you walk out this door for good. And that takes boldness. Doesn't take boldness to micromanage and helicopter your parents. That's all fear-based.
Hi, it's Andy Neary, and thank you for listening to the Bullpen Sessions podcast. Did you know the ideas shared on this show are things we actually specialize in helping you implement? If you're an insurance professional and you want to turn your credibility into consistent client acquisition, visit CompleteGameConsulting.com and schedule a free strategy call. Again, that's CompleteGameConsulting.com to request your free strategy call. All right, let's jump back into today's podcast episode. Yeah, I think you gave me a little epiphany because everybody has somebody in their life that they as a great salesman, and they say that he or she could sell a ketchup popsicle to a woman in white gloves, right? But what we're really saying is that person probably just doesn't have that filter of don't be bold. They're just they're able to just go out and be bold, talk to anybody, say anything. And again, good things tend to happen when you be bold, where most of us, I could probably say myself included, had the boldness kicked out of us as kids. And I don't think it was ever done by design. It's just the way things happen when you're a kid. You're told to shut up, or you're told to be quiet. You're told to don't speak up, be seen, not heard, right? All these things. And eventually the school system, I'll say in many ways, kicks it out of you. And then by the time
well, think about just this. What stops a lot of people is a fear of failure.
Yes,
because we are graded the F, the brutal F, except for bold people. Bold people go like, failure is just information. Just step up. That just means I'm closer to my goal. And so they don't process rejection as something personal. They regard it as, this isn't the right situation. I don't have to take any rejection personally because I can remain whole. That person doesn't really know me. The number of people that really know me, I never have to worry about being rejected by them because I know their love is real and true, and they know I'm fallible and human. And so, but other people rejecting me, just like, I got a cold call this morning, this guy, and I actually stupidly answered it. And the guy was trying to sell me some vacation stuff. And I just said, yeah, I got to go. He's not going to take that personally. He's going to do the next call because he knows he's got to do 100 of them to get somebody who's going to talk to him. But you know who talks to him? The person he can actually close. I saved him time. He was never going to close me. Yeah. So that's the story he tells himself, which is actually true. That this guy doesn't hate me. I'm not a bad person. He just is not the right client right now.
Well,
now.
And I think you're doing such a good job of describing, again, I think when people hear the word bold, they immediately think of somebody who's gregarious, loud, lights up the room, right? The guy that everybody's looking over there, he's telling the jokes and so forth. But bold doesn't always have to be what's coming out of your mouth. When I think of bold, the way you're describing it now, I think about experiences in my life. Here's a great example. When I started this business, I remember that moment, Fred, where I used to be deathly afraid of failing. But I remember the moment I had a horrible day. Everything went wrong. I lost a couple clients, and it was a day full of failure. But I remember going to bed that night excited to wake up and do it all over again. And it was that moment that I realized I can accept failure. It's just a sign I need to change or get better. And I think people wouldn't view that as a vision of boldness, but it is.
Yeah, it's that willingness to fail, knowing that that's the only way to growth is failure. Yeah. You learn to walk by trying and falling like 1,000 times.
Yep.
And, you learn to talk by talking funny. You learn, and whatever it is, you weren't good at it. If you wanted to play an instrument, you sucked at it at the beginning. And if you weren't magically instantly gifted and skilled, you stopped you.
Yep.
Because I wanted to be good at this way before you're good at it.
Yeah.
And some people are more naturally talented than others, but most people I know who are successful just worked harder and learned from their failures. There's a lot of people who are naturally gifted who don't learn a lot. I know people with really high IQs that school came really easy to them. So they never learned how to study. They never learned how to gather information because they could breeze through school. And all of a sudden they got out there and had to face the challenges of how to learn other skills. And they didn't have any learning abilities. So it's again, you're so true about it's not being loud and show offy and drawing attention to yourself. That's more of a narcissistic thing. Bold people, they're not hesitating to chase their dreams or to achieve what they're trying to do in that moment. They're not letting somebody else's fantasized opinion of them stop them.
Yeah.
So it takes boldness to just accept rejection. Now it could be, I like to really bring this home because this exemplifies what you're talking about. It takes boldness to be kind. How many times do people stop themselves because they say, "Oh, that person, they're not going to want me to do that," or what if they react negatively to me? I was in the airport and I was watching this woman. She's got a winter coat on. And she's trying to pull her backpack on, and I'm behind her, and I see it, and I just reach over and I pull the strap of her backpack up on her shoulder as an act of kindness. Now she could have said, "Get away from me, please." Mm-hmm. But what she said was, "Oh, thank you. I was trapped." And I was willing to have her, you know, I don't know what headspace she's in. She could be, you know, terrified of men or terrified of blonde people or whatever. And she would have said, just leave me alone. I wouldn't have taken that on. I would have said, I offered her an act of kindness. I was not assaulting or molesting her. I was just helping her put a backpack on. And 99 times out of 100, if your intentions are good in your kindness, they react that way.
Yeah, and I think that's actually a big deal nowadays with what you're seeing as societal norms. When you're out in public and you see something good or bad, not acknowledging or not supporting, not helping, right? How many videos have we seen now of somebody getting beaten up or robbed literally in the day, in the middle of the day in public, and people don't do anything about it because I've got to mind my own business. Being bold is stepping up and helping that person, or saying something to somebody, acknowledging somebody who needs to be acknowledged. Those are all forms of boldness. And, going back to your PRIDE acronym, we talked about P being preparation. This is the one I really like because I'd love your insight on this. R is relaxing.
Yes.
And you talk about reducing anxiety before putting yourself in a social encounter, which in our industry could be that big sales meeting. How can a producer, what can they do to relax themselves before putting themselves in this situation where they could be talking to the largest prospect they've ever had?
Well, this is at first, I'll tell you what doesn't work is somebody telling you just relax. That never worked for me as a child when my mom would say that. But the fact of the matter is, you can control your state, first of all, by checking your physiology and seeing where you're tensing up. Because when we're nervous, we tense up. We'll even stop breathing. And I think this is very primal. I think when we were out on the African plain and we were in danger, we stopped breathing so that the animal that was chasing us wouldn't hear us breathe. But I think, and this is the thing, we have the same physical reaction to psychological danger as we do to real danger. The body doesn't differentiate it when the brain does this. So relax your physiology and then control your breathe. Before I go on a big stage, 5,000 people, I'm backstage doing a breathing exercise where I vibrate the vagus nerve by taking a deep breath in and then just going ha in a long, slow note. You do that 3 times. All of a sudden you've calmed yourself. And when you realize you're in control of your state, mentally that calms you as well. And all of a sudden your anxiety turns into energy. And that's powerful. When you realize I don't want to feel dull and droopy, I want to feel energized. And I can turn all of my anxiety into energy just by controlling my breath, because that means I'm in control of my state.
Yeah,
and we have that ability.
You just made a fan out of my girlfriend. I can tell you that. She does breath work for a living. As part of being a dental hygienist, she has a breath work business on the side, and she talks about how often we just don't breathe. How often we spend time throughout the day not breathing. And if you would just take a few moments to take a few breaths, stress, anxiety would reduce. You'd be more present. So that is so powerful. It's something I do as well before keynote talks. And we're going to talk about your keynote speaking here in a little bit. Let's get into the I, insights. This is the one I really love because the stories we tell ourselves, right? We create these imaginary dangers in our head. And you already talked about one. Sorry, people aren't thinking about you as often as you think they are. That's number one. You talk about in the book, though, Dr. Yes and Dr. No. talked about that a little bit. Who are you going to listen to? Dr. Yes or Dr. No?
Dr. No is telling you you're going to be embarrassed. You're going to be hurt. People are going to laugh at you. You're going to fail. And the thing is, human beings who get in that situation, they're really skilled at calculating the worst possible outcome, the worst case scenario. What they're terrible at is what are the odds of that actually happening? Because sometimes it's 100 to 1, sometimes it's 1,000 to 1. But they act like it's one of the two possible outcomes, which it is, except one is not 50%. And so they stop themselves because Dr. No is saying, watch out. Whereas Dr. Yes is saying, this could be interesting. This could be fun. We could learn something. Let's get uncomfortable. Let's get stronger. We earlier we talked about boldness being muscle. Boldness builds just like a muscle, just like when you're exercise, doing a lift or anything. You have to be uncomfortable, or you're not going to get anywhere. If you're going to do curls with 2 pounds, you're not going to get any stronger. So you have to. There's a great expression that I learned, which is, the rep in exercise, the repetition right before failure is where all the growth happens. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of amazing to think about, because it's true in exercise, but guess what? It's true in life too. Yeah, everywhere you go, that moment where you power through the discomfort is where the discovery, where the reward happens.
I was thinking about this when I give one of my primary keynote talks. I talk about a story, Fred, that happened to me just a couple of years ago. And talking about the fears the self chatter we have between the ears. We had won an opportunity with a really nice insurance carrier in this industry, a recognizable name, and I was asked to go do a workshop for them at their headquarters. And over COVID, I grew my hair out. I wear it in a man bun or a ponytail sometimes. And I can remember when we won the opportunity and I was booking our travel, I had those fears of like, what am I going to do with my hair? Because I had all of the industry norms of, you got to look a certain way to get respect, and you've got to act a certain way. And I almost cut my hair before I went to do this workshop. But instead I went down, I gave the workshop, but I had my hair down, not pulled up. And I can remember 5 minutes into the workshop, my hair was all over the place. It's in my face. And I literally just stopped in front of a room full of people at this headquarters. And I said, guys, would you mind if I pulled my hair up into a ponytail? It is really annoying me. And every single one of them, Fred, said, yeah, sure. Do what you got to do, man. And that little moment of bold, like being able to stop and go, you guys mind? I realized, all these fears I had in my head about how this was going to go, it was all imaginary.
Yeah, it was, and we're good at it. We can run these tapes all day long, and bold people hear that stuff. They just don't listen. And that's the thing. Is like, yeah. This could go badly. I don't care. And that's the thing, and that's the other big insight is what bold people know is that 99% of the time, nothing bad happens unless you decide to label it that way. Oh, I got embarrassed. Guess what? Dying of embarrassment is not a medical diagnosis. It's a fear-based behavior inhibitor.
Yeah, well said. And I'm going to go back to something you said a while back, which was bold people never stop themselves. They let others try. I love that. That's going to be on a clip we share to promote this. I can guarantee that. All right, let's go to D in the PRIDE acronym, Dosage. I'm curious about this one. Control the level of intensity of a social experience. So you give us an example in the book of like how social media and people try to tell us that the only real failure is not trying. They give you all these quips, but no one actually ever teaches you how to do it. What do you mean when you talk about controlling the dosage or the level of intensity in an experience?
Well, you're trying to expand your comfort zone. So you can't go so far into it that you recoil and traumatize yourself any more than if you're going to start bench pressing, you start with 300 pounds on the bar. So life is about dosage. It's amazingly controlling the intensity of your food intake, the medication. Water can kill you if you take enough of it, if you don't control the dosage of it. So it's every dose becomes a poison at a certain level. If you're trying to, you say, I really want to start to meet people, you don't go to a party of 500 strangers and say, I'm gonna meet 40 people. You're gonna meet nobody. Go, I'm going to start speaking. So I'm going to start booking gigs and get in front of people. No, you're going to go to Toastmasters where it's 100% supportive environment, and you're going to learn the skills to get better, and you're going to fail upwards gradually. Because in my book, all of the exercises, they're tiered. They start non-verbally, all the way to doing really crazy stuff like putting headphones on and singing out in front of Starbucks.
I don't want to cut you, but here's what I want to go to that right now. I want to have some fun with this because the E in pride is everyday action. Daily action matters. And this is where you dive into your exercises. Now, if you haven't read the book, there are 3 levels of exercise. And as I feel, if I'm reading them right, Fred, every level gets a little more intense.
Yeah.
But
that's controlling the dosage, right?
It's dialing up the dosage. You have some great examples. I mean, there's probably over 40 different exercises people could do as they scale up the intensity. What are a couple that stand out for you? So if I'm somebody who says, okay, Fred, I want to put this into practice and build this bold muscle. What are some exercises I can apply every day to really help me put in the reps so that this starts to happen more naturally?
Yeah. So the easiest exercise to do every day, and it will build your boldness muscle. And what happens when you build your boldness muscle is the positive feedback loop happens. And so one of the basic levels is that you can do every day is talk to a stranger. And well, what do I say? And so I say, you do a drive-by compliment. You say, oh, that suit looks amazing on you. I don't know who your tailor is, but that brand looks great on you. And then you walk away, because here's the key. You don't have any agenda. You're not trying to meet them. You're not trying to sell them real estate. This is why real estate agents fail more than anything, is everybody who meets them knows that they're trying to get you to list their house with them. And instead of just being human, when you do the drive-by, you're not even waiting for a response. They could say thank you or not, but it's a gift you give. And what happens is, and I'll give you a perfect example of this, is when I go to a Starbucks, I'll get my drink and then I'll go back to the barista and I'll say, excuse me, now what does she normally hear? A complaint.
Correct.
That's who goes back. So I say, excuse me, this is absolutely perfect. I just wanted to thank you. It changes her whole day.
Mm-hmm.
Because she's got a stack of complaints that she's had to fix. And now all of a sudden, somebody's letting her know she did it really well. And they appreciated it and verbalized it. And you know what? I feel great too, because I see the big smile on her face. Yeah. And I've told people all sorts of stuff. I'll take this to the next level. If you have a judgment,
level 2.
Well, the level 2 is it right within the drive-by compliment is, if you have a judgment about somebody, you say, that haircut looks ridiculous on that guy. That's what I'm going to compliment them on. I'm going to pick that thing and say, man, that I couldn't pull that haircut off, but man, it's working for you. And you know what? It changes my opinion. I've had a judgment about them. It erases my judgment about them, because obviously they got that haircut for a reason.
Yeah.
And so I gave them something positive, and it reversed that in me as well. Now you want to dial it up, go in somewhere where there's a bunch of tables and ask if you can sit with somebody because they got an empty seat. They may say no. They are likely to say no. You're aiming for them to say no. A lot of these exercises are aimed at failure because you're doing something ridiculous a lot of times. I have had people say, no, go ahead and sit. And it ends up being a conversation. Now, I don't start interrogating them because it's like, oh, this guy sat down to get to know me. I'll sit down and just start doing my stuff.
Yep.
And then I may say something, and he may say something, or she may say something. I've had it turn into an hour-long conversation. And I've also had it turn into nothing. I just sat there at the table. And I've had it turn into, no, I'm sorry. I'm expecting somebody, whether they're expecting somebody or not. They don't want me to sit there.
Yep.
I was aiming for no. So I was okay with getting the no, just like cold calling and presenting and pitching. You are likely to get more no's than yeses. You're going to strike out more than you're going to hit and get on base. That's life. And it's certainly sales. So if you recoil back into your shell because you didn't control the dosage, if you say, I'm going to do 100 cold calls today, you don't start with 100. On day 2, you'll do none because you stacked up so much hang-ups and rejection and name calling over the phone. So you build yourself up, you build your tolerance, you titrate to a level that you can handle so that you don't retreat back into your shell. You just go, oh yeah, that didn't work out. And just reflect on it. Say, why did I decide to take that on? Is that, it's like if you accidentally cut somebody off on the highway and they scream, you're an a-hole out the window. Does that actually make you an a-hole? I don't think so. You either are or aren't, but that single action or somebody yelling that doesn't make you that. That's just their momentary expletive.
Yeah. And I think to your point, building the muscle of boldness is no different than building your muscles in the gym. If you're just starting out in the gym and you go to the squat rack and put 300 pounds on your back, it's going to be a bad day. You can't go from 0 to 60 and think you're going to be successful because you're going to end up trashing your body. It's no different with dialing up the intensity of your boldness muscle. You got to start small and then slowly dial the intensity up until doing some of these level 3 things like putting a Band-Aid on your face, wearing a wig in public, put earbuds in and sing out loud. Those become second nature because you don't even fear the failure that could come with them. But you have to start small. I got a question.
Yeah, that's that's really, and everybody's different too. The pace at which you grow your boldness muscle and the intensity that you can handle is your own journey.
100%. Some people grow muscle easily and fast in the gym. People have different bodies. People have different boldness muscles. I would love to know this before we wrap up, Fred. I do a lot of speaking. You've done over 450 keynote talks. I'm the kind of guy that can get up on stage with a microphone, put on the extrovert, I need the character, have fun, be full of energy. When that engagement's over, I'm the guy who also likes to go back to his hotel room and be by himself. I got a lot of producers that want to use keynote speaking to grow their business, but there's a little fear, a little hesitancy. Knowing you're also a naturally born introvert who's done a boatload of speaking, what advice would you give that producer?
With any of that stuff, and this is the dosage and the pace of your growth as well, is that you have to have recovery time. And this is a great life skill, is to know that putting yourself out of your comfort zone requires a recovery period. Anything that takes an annoyance, just like with exercise, once if you've done a full hour workout, the next thing you don't do is go climb 40 flights of stairs. You're going to eat something. You're going to sit down. You're going to relax. It's the same thing as give yourself this recovery time before you go back in. And it may be you just say, you know what, I want to talk to these people all want to talk to me after I speak. I'm just going to give myself 5 minutes of privacy, or I'm gonna go to my room for 20 minutes and kick off my shoes and sit on the bed. Then I'm gonna go down to the cocktail hour. give yourself that time to refresh and recover so that you can go back in. Don't try to string those things endlessly together because you burn out. Mm-hmm. You will generate a regression rather than a progression.
Yeah, I've loved this episode, this conversation, Fred, because I think your viewpoint of being bold, and in your case, super bold, and what it requires is a lot different than I think people believe it is. People have this view that one day you just wake up and you're bold, and that's not the case at all. It's little goals, little wins, little cases of putting in the reps where you dial up that intensity of putting yourself in those uncomfortable situations time after time after time before they do not show up as uncomfortable anymore. They become natural. And I think in the world of sales, my listeners, that is a big part of this equation. Is we often talk about the tactics and the knowledge that go into selling. Very few people talk about the mindset and the discomfort of selling. And I think what you shared today is so impactful to the people listening, because people have this view that one day you can just wake up and I'm going to go be that bold sales professional in the meeting. No, that's not how it works. It happens little win by little win, doing little things as small as complimenting a stranger that can make you a better salesperson. So Fred, if somebody wanted to reach out, either get a copy of the book, and I highly recommend you read this book, guys, Superbold, From Underconfident to Charismatic in 90 Days, or somebody wanted to reach out, Fred, because they want you on their stage speaking, what is the best way to get a hold of you?
So the website is fredjoyal.com, Joyal. I think I even have some of the misspellings, like any good marketer. And that's my email. That's my everything. That's my Instagram, my Facebook, my TikTok. I'm Fred Joyal, everything, including Gmail. So that would be the easiest way to reach out to me. The books are available on Amazon. And it's me. It has the Kindle hardcover and Audible, and it is me reading the Audible. So you'll have me in your car berating you to work on your boldness muscle.
Well, I can tell you this right away. If I am somebody who is looking to motivate some sales professionals right now to put themselves in more uncomfortable situations, to sell more, to get in front of bigger prospects, you're a guy I want on stage to teach my producers how to be bold. So Fred, thank you. If you're listening in, this is a guy you want to impact your team. If you want producers to put themselves in more uncomfortable positions to grow their sales, I would highly recommend connecting with Fred. Any last thoughts, Fred, before we wrap up?
No, I think it's just the whole idea of being super bold is that you want to develop this life skill so that you are bold when it matters most. And it may only be 1, 2, 3 times in your life, but they will be turning points in your life. Many people reach their life end with a stack of regrets. You don't want to do that because life's short, and the bold people are determined not to have regrets because they hesitated, they stopped themselves. Chase your dreams, and be comfortable speaking up, stepping up, standing up for what you believe, being kind, being generous, and not worrying about what people think. Worry about what matters to you and who matters to you.
I love that. You say it right in your insights. You need to give yourself the permission to have the life you want. And that often is sitting on the other side of bold. And bold is nothing more than a muscle. If you put in enough reps, it becomes a much bigger muscle. So Fred, I want to thank you for this. This has been an awesome conversation. You've given me some epiphanies. If you're listening in right now, this is an unspoken truth about sales. The talk you got going in between the ears, that's 80% of the battle. And I hope this conversation today is giving you a little clarity, because when you mix clarity with confidence, you will be consistent. And when you are consistent, you are going to become unstoppable. Be good. That's all we got for today's episode of the Bullpen Sessions podcast. One thing that would really help us both and other new potential listeners is for you to rate this show and leave a comment in iTunes, Stitcher, or wherever you tune in to listen to the show. Also, make sure to link up with us at CompleteGameConsulting.com on social media, and please share this podcast with anyone who you think might enjoy it. Until next time, remember, clarity creates confidence, confidence creates consistency, consistency makes you unstoppable.